Carmella gets her spot on that. Let the record reflect the meeting is reconvened with all members present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two quick items, and we're going to get to greetings to the public. Minutes for approval. And I have a motion for the regular minutes of March 26, 2012.
I move the executive meeting minutes of April 23rd as amended.
Second.
The executive minutes have already been discussed, so we will roll call vote, please.
Mr. Tsukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
May I have a motion for the regular minutes of March 26, 2012.
Yes, I move the meeting minutes as amended.
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, vote please.
Mrs. Tsukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Okay. If there happen to be any past mayors in the audience, could you please step forward? And also, all past council members in the audience, I'd also like to have you step forward, join us up here.
Hey, Jack.
This is a very special group we have up here to honor a very special person, someone we lost several weeks ago, and we still feel it. I thank all the elected officials, past and present, for coming out here. Mariana Holden shares her regret. She really would have loved to have been here. She has prior obligation in Pennsylvania, and she could not get out of it, but she sends her well wishes. But there's been many stories going around about everything that Joe Mazzocca has done for this borough. One of the stories that was shared came from Joe Falco, founding chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Joe had become borough attorney just before the Historic Preservation Commission embarked on the task of placing the downtown historic district on the national, state, and local historic inventory. It's not an easy task, sometimes a controversial task. The commission worked with the Historic Preservation attorney and Joe to comply with the state requirements. This lengthy procedure needed to be dovetailed with the zoning and planning boards, then brought to council. And as Joe Falco said, Joe Mazzocca navigated the seas between the rocks swiftly bringing all parties together to comply with state law. This was a laborious task, but Joe, the lover of history, knew it was right for Madison. I love the quote, "Navigate the seas between the rocks smoothly." Up here we have dedicated volunteers. We all work very hard for Madison, but we have very different personalities. Joe Mazzocca survived all our personalities, this is the number one priority we got to work on. It takes a special person to be able to do that, and that was Joe Mazzocca. So, I'm going to read a proclamation in a few minutes, but I want to, as I was talking about Joe Falco, one of the first gifts, and we'll ask the family to come up in just a few minutes. But Joe Falco has come here very often to take pictures. Came up with this picture of Joe standing for the salute, and I think it's just a classic Joe pose as he's there. People saw, I called him the country lawyer because he was always so calm and sort of dedicated to Madison, and that is Joe right there. So Barbara, Mark, can you come on up? I've asked our our past mayors that are here to help me because, as I mentioned, he has worked with everyone up here among many more. So we will read this proclamation and we'll move on to the next. Barry, would you?
This is a proclamation of the Borough of Madison in memory of Joseph Mazzocca Jr., Esquire. Whereas Joseph Mazzocca served the Borough of Madison as Planning Board and Zoning Board Attorney under Mayors Elizabeth Baumgartner, Ralph Engelsman, and Don Capen. And whereas he was appointed to the Borough as Borough Attorney in 1996 by me, and
whereas Mr. Mazzocca continues to serve in the position of Borough Attorney, providing counsel and guidance for Mayors Jack Dunn, Woody Kirkenslider, Mariana Holden, and current Mayor Robert Conley. And whereas former Borough Clerks Esther Sebesto and Marilyn Schaefer, as well as current Borough Clerk Elizabeth Osborne, all work closely with Mr. Mazzocca in preparing resolutions and ordinances for the council meetings. And
whereas mayors, council members, borough clerks, and fellow citizens of the Borough of Madison held Joseph Mazzocca in high esteem for his genuine sense of duty to the borough's success. And whereas Joseph Mazzocca loved Madison and captured the best of Madison's history, architecture, and people through his high-quality photography. And
whereas Joseph Mazzocca's successful accomplishments on behalf of the Borough of Madison include creating the first ever agreement with New Jersey Transit for town to take over a New Jersey Transit parking facility, saving the Luke Miller House, and successfully defending the borough in the battle over the ExxonMobil property.
Now therefore I, Robert H. Conley, the Mayor of the Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, today's and yesterday's governing bodies, extend condolences to the family of Borough Attorney Joseph Mazzocca Jr. and express our sincere gratitude and appreciation for his dedication, commitment, and efforts on behalf of all the residents of the Borough of Madison. Thank you.
My father loved hill protecting the town legally, but he also loved capturing it through his photography. And I hope this token can help everyone remember that. Thank you.
I want to thank our past mayors for coming here, and also, someone may say, but I don't remember Mayor Bruce.
No, I never read the record.
Bruce Dalton and Joe Mazzocca had a special relationship through all the years, and since Mariana couldn't be here, I figured there was no better person than Bruce to pinch hit for Mariana, so thank you, Bruce, for doing that. One of the things we do, as everyone standing here recognize, knows, and the people sitting here will have to look forward to, is for the people that dedicate their time and effort on behalf of the borough. We give them a special borough chair. So this one is Joe's chair, and that plaque on the back, and this is the family. So his spirit will always be sitting in this chair. So thank you. Thank you all. Joe's favorite topics with his camera, partly glass, so pewter box, and great at partly glass. second-class petty officer Dominic Rosa, please come forward. And also, parents, please come forward. It's a great honor to also present this proclamation, but it also is making me feel a little old because I think it was just yesterday that Dominic was calling me Coach Bob. Here recognizing his service on behalf of not just Madison, but our entire country. So we have a proclamation from military service of second-class petty officer Dominic DeRosa. Whereas the Borough of Madison has always appreciated and honored the service of the men and women in the United States Armed Forces, and whereas second-class petty officer Dominic DeRosa, who is the son of Borough employees Donna Carey and Fire Chief Louis DeRosa, joined the United States Navy in September of 2004, and whereas Dominic has been deployed to Greece, Poland, and most recently, Fujara, I should practice this, Fujara, thank you, for 7 months, and whereas last year Borough employees generously donated items such as canned foods, toiletries, paper products, and baked goods for a total of 18 care packages that were mailed out to Dominic and his unit, and whereas the Borough of Madison would like to thank Dominic for his service in the United States Navy and for serving the Borough as a volunteer firefighter, and whereas the citizens of the Borough of Madison are grateful for the service of so many in our armed forces, and whereas the Borough Council adopted Resolution 61-2012 pledging support for New Jersey Employer Support Guard and Reserve Employment Initiative Program, which endeavors to find employment for returning veterans. Now therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, the Mayor of the Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, do hereby extend gratitude and appreciation to second-class Petty Officer Dominic DeRosa and the members of the United States Armed Forces and honor their commitment to our country. So Dominic, thank you for everything.
While overseas for 7 months, I had the chance to fly a flag in Fujara, thanking the Borough of Madison and employees for donating their time and their efforts to send the care packages over. And this is just to thank the Borough of Madison.
Thank you so much, Dominic. Again, I just want to reinforce everything that Dominic has done for our country, but the time and effort that our employees took to send care packages. We often, one of the things in this war today, sometimes it's too far removed unless you're a family like the DeRosa Carey family where you have someone serving. So I think this is a good reminder for everyone. We have people throughout this world serving our country. Please think of them and support them in any way possible through care packages, letters, anything. It is truly appreciated, and we wouldn't be in this room without their effort. Thank you. Everyone is welcome to stay, but I'll talk slowly if you want to excuse yourselves if you're not. Thank you. And my only other comment before we go to other reports is, you never know what message you'll get when you check the messages on the mayor's phone extension. but it is always nice when all of a sudden the resident says, "You're probably used to hearing complaints, but I've got a compliment for the Borough of Madison." And this came from Tom with Downtown Salon, talking about our sidewalk street sweeper, Vito Terranova, saying he is meticulous at his work. He is a true professional. He interacts with all the store owners and is a true great representation for the Borough of Madison. So I wanted to share that phone message. And now for reports from committees, public safety. Ms. Tsukamoto?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. The fire department participated in the Madison High School Day of Service on June 1st. 8 Madison High School students spent 6 hours assisting firefighters with maintenance of equipment, learning about fire safety, and were given an opportunity to try some firefighting techniques. The hope is that they will all come back and become volunteer firefighters sometime in the future. Fire department personnel participated in the Relay for Life the past weekend. Madison and Florham Park firefighters cooked and served food for participants from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. On Friday, June 15th, we had our 3 pumpers tested, which are required to be done annually. 2 of the engines, one of the engine had no issues, no problems were found. One of the engines had some minor issues. Unfortunately, engine number 3, the one that's been servicing us since 1990, had a major issue, and this engine is under repair at this time. From the police department, we are continuing our safety improvements at the junior school, and you will hear later on this evening regarding reducing the speed limit on Ridgedale Avenue from 30 to 25. Also want to report here that Project Community Pride is holding a car raffle to raise funds for the program. I believe it's $5 for a ticket, and it's the grand prize is Honda Civic. So if anybody is interested in buying that raffle ticket, I have plenty of them available. Thank you.
Thank you. Utilities, Dr. Esposito.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, everyone should have received the annual drinking water quality report from the Borough. This is a report from the year 2011. The report basically is a very good report for us. And if those of you who did not receive the report can either go to the clerk's office to get one or call up our water utility at 973-593-3092. Also, last week, we had a little bit of a hot spell for a few days. Those of you who have signed up for Nixle should have gotten a Nixle report asking for a mild curtailment of your electric use during those high peak periods, which we talked about in the last session. For those of you who would like to have those reports handed or given to you, please sign up for Nixle, and we will get those announcements to you through our Nixle. And you can sign up at Nixle, I believe it's Nixle.com. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Works and Engineering, Mr. Links.
No report, thank you.
Finance and Borough Clerk, Mr. Catanello.
Thank you, Mayor. It is at last week's meeting of the joint meeting, it was revealed to us that we are going to need approximately 3.5, potentially more, up to $4 million worth of capital improvement on the joint meeting scheduled for construction in 2013 and 2014. Once this is completed, we don't anticipate any major capital expenditures at the joint meeting through 2019. However, in order to get things rolling, we need to commence some of the documentation and requests by October of this year. So it's something we're going to have to get to work on shortly. And then just a few other points, since talking about my favorite topic, sewers. The work on the Park Avenue North Street force main will start next week in cooperation with the County of Morris and be completed by the end of the month. Matina and Sons utility contractor has been awarded the project, and Dennis Harrington will inspect on behalf of the borough. Draft design plans from CDM Smith were received last week for the second phase of the force main work on Burnett Road, Ridgedale Ave, and Fairview Avenue. It's our intention to have the consultant finalize design work and establish a bid schedule by the end of July. Siemens Corporation has completed work for upgrading chemical feed system at both North Street Pump Station and Candlewood Pump Station in cooperation with both the Sewer Department of DPW and Madison Electric. The new systems went online last week. The new systems will conserve relatively expensive corrosion and odor activities due to improved flow monitoring communications, i.e. the additives will be reduced during any rainfall events when they are not needed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Community Affairs, Mr. Landrigan.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, Madison Arts and Cultural Alliance. The Playwrights Theater is exploring the possibility of a collaboration with Madison High School students on the creation of an original play about the town of Madison and the history of changing its name from Bottle Hill to Madison. John Petrowski and Mark DBS have begun to consider ideas, and they are working with the Madison Historical Society. Tonight is the opening of the Shakespeare Theater of New Jersey's outdoor production, Comedy of Errors. It's at the Greek Theater at the College of St. Elizabeth. It runs through August. And finally, MACA is working with several performers this summer and will provide monthly, and if they can swing it, more often, music at the farmers markets. Their first scheduled performance is July 12th. Okay. The DDC, right now they're focusing on two things, right? The biggest is the farmers market, which has begun, and as you all know, it's split 10 weeks at Waverly and then 10 weeks at Green Village. They've also begun planning for Bottle Hill Day, which is coming up in October. And then finally, the Senior Advisory Committee. This group performs a great service to the town, and their coordinator attends a lot of special ed classes. I'm not going to read through all of them, but if anybody wants to know, you can always ask me. In addition, what you wanted me to let you know is their great room will be used by the Recreation Department Monday through Friday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. for summer theater rehearsals. It's just an example of how the different agencies and organizations in this town share resources. It's something that we should all be proud of. In addition, they're discussing additional van usage for the farmers market, and they'll begin a trial period this July. Now, I just want to jump back to the farmers market for a minute. Laura Cole, who's a member of the DDC, is their kind of like their full-time administrative support person. In order to help seniors who are a little restricted in their ability to get around town, she started a program, and I give her a lot of credit for this. You all can't see this right now, but for a number of seniors at Chateau Thierry, what they're doing is they can fill out this form. She will go down to the farmer's market and pick up the food that they requested and bring it back to them. If anybody wants to help her, give her a call. A lot of kudos to Laura. She's doing a great job. That's it, Mayor. Thank you
very much. Health and Public Assistance, Ms. Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a report on health and public assistance, but I wanted to bring up something that I previously sponsored at the last council meeting, a resolution asking for the state to restore energy taxes they collect on our behalf, but have not been sending us and the other municipalities. Those bills, Senate 1900 and Assembly 2921, have both been released from committee and are being voted on today in the Senate and the Assembly. If approved, this increased revenue would come to Madison and be used for property tax relief. I'm glad that my actions and of sponsoring this resolution and the League of Municipalities making an effort to tell all of us to go out and to do such will be hopefully bearing fruit in the next couple of days. So I hope in the next council meeting, I'll be able to say that these bills were passed and that the funding has been restored and signed into law, and we'll be getting more funds back to the municipalities. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. One quick thing before communications and petitions, it was brought to my attention that I talked about Vito Terranova and his excellent service that was recognized by a merchant in town, but it's also been recognized by the whole employee of the month. So he certainly deserves that. Communications and petitions.
Yes, Mayor, we had one email received today from Roberta Mayerson of Sherwood Avenue, and I'd like to read, she wrote, "I would like to thank the crew of the emergency electrical team. A huge town tree limb fell on my power line in the Friday storm and pulled the line to within a few feet of the ground. The crew was prompt, reassuring, and did a great job first thing Saturday morning. They also made sure that the limb was picked up first thing Monday. I am most appreciative of this vital service and of the men who came." That's it.
Thank you. All right, this is the first of two invitations for discussion from the public. This is the one with the restrictions. Both of them have 3-minute time limits, but this is limited to items on our discussion agenda and resolutions that are listed. Ordinances are discussed through hearings, so ordinances, this is not the time to discuss any ordinances. The items we have for discussion today are town hall meeting schedule, the 2011 municipal audit, proposed amendment to the Upper Delaware, Upper Raritan, Northeast Water Quality Management Plan, Ridgedale Avenue speed limit, Complete Streets Advisory Committee, and appropriating $90,000 from the Open Space Trust Fund for greenhouse at Madison Community Gardens, and also establishing a Madison Community Gardens Advisory Committee. And then the last item for discussion is appropriating $50,000 general capital improvement fund for emergency storm sewer rehabilitation. And then the resolutions are listed. You can check on the board or one of the agendas. Does anyone wish to speak on any of those items? Again, step up to the lectern, state your name, your address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Anyone wish? Yes, Sam?
Sam Cerciello, Park Avenue, Madison. Just on that ordinance, as far as the $90,000 for the greenhouse, is that part of the $3.5 million, or is that?
No, that is separate. This would come from open space, but not from the bond issue. This is money that is sitting in the open space fund. So it's no borrowing would be used for this. It is the fund that comes from the open space tax.
I just thought that the part of the 3.5 was for the whole concept there, no?
No.
How about ordinance 16, Madison Community Garden Advisory Committee? What is that committee? What is that all about?
You'll hear a little bit as we discuss it, but basically if you haven't been to the community gardens, it is a great thing. And as I commented at the ribbon cutting, putting together the words community and garden is a beautiful thing, as you would say. And so this is just a committee to advise for improvements in their policies, just give it a general oversight for that program.
In other words, whether you go tomatoes or, in other words, what is the purpose of that?
To oversee the community garden program.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting and move on to agenda discussions. First one, town hall meeting schedule. Excuse me, losing my voice. We had discussed this before, and there's two topics that have been bubbling up. One we discussed already. Dr. Esposito suggested the town meeting related to the electric utility and water utility, and just giving a general understanding what it means to own our own utilities, and and also have a discussion as to where those utilities are going. So that is one, and the other is almost an annual thing. This is probably a town meeting we should have on an annual basis, is just an understanding of how priorities are set for capital projects. Obviously, for those that come here meeting after meeting and have been here through the budget process, have seen the discussions and how priorities sometimes shift, but it figured it would be nice to have a dedicated town hall meeting to do this. The concept of town hall meeting would be an hour and a half to a maximum of 2 hours, where a half hour to no more than 40 minutes is dedicated to an education process to give the attendees an understanding of the topic, and then the rest of the time is a chance for the attendees to discuss. There will be discussion questions and then some general comments. So what I had suggested is doing the capital one over the summer, because that just seems to be a hot topic in some neighborhoods, and then the electric in the fall, but open for discussion. So, and my 3 minutes is up. So, Jeannie?
I think these, we talked about having these meetings for a while, but I think it's just narrowing down this to pick a date. The first Monday is always a good time because we don't have other meetings. The other 3 Mondays, we do have meetings. I'm just, is that agreeable with
Certainly,
people?
that's what I had in my mind was the first Monday in August.
Right, not July.
But September won't work because of Labor Day,
Labor
but so the first Monday in October could be the two dates.
I will be on vacation the first Monday in August.
Okay.
I'm unable to attend.
And you're actually a key person for the, if we do the capital.
When do we start the real work on the budget? Is that, say, middle fall?
Yep.
So anytime before that would be good. That would be my thought process there.
So we could, Rob, if you're comfortable, we could flip-flop them and do the utility one in August
That
and
will
the capital one in October.
Yep.
Okay? So we'll, yep. All right, so utility discussion, so I'll work with Doc, Ray and Jim, and we'll get rolling on that. The idea again is the council will be there, we'll advertise it, but no action would be taken. It would just be enlightenment for both residents and the council and the mayor. Okay, thank you. Robert, are you here? There we are. Moving on to municipal audit.
The state of New Jersey has a requirement that at a minimum, each member of the governing body must read the comments and recommendations. There were 7 recommendations listed. Are there any questions?
Jeannie?
Yeah, thank you. Robert?
Yes.
A couple of items here, we see it year after year. Is there any way that we can eliminate them?
The first one, no. The last one, yes.
So for enlightenment for the audience, can you explain the first one and last one?
The first item is inadequate segregation of duties be maintained with respect to the recording and treasury functions. Essentially, what the auditor is looking for is to hire additional personnel to perform additional reconciliations and audits, and we're not going to go down that road with additional personnel. The very last one is quarterly performance expenditure reports for the New Jersey Historic Trust Grant be filed in a timely manner. We could not file them because we did not have the cooperation of our engineer on this project. The architect. The architect. The architect.
That is not a borough employee, that is someone that...
Yes.
So just so we're... But
Poor, there's Robert, he's going, oh,
any other questions?
Is that a continual problem with the Historic Trust grant?
It was when we needed to report. However, I believe, and Jim, you can help me out here. I think we only have 1 or 2 more reports to be filed.
Linda Sawyer of the Finance Department is filing the final report and final closeout documents. So once those are submitted, we'll get the final grant payment in and we'll be done.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions?
As a final statement, in the month of November, I'll be be before the council with a corrective action plan, which I'm required to submit to the council, adopt by resolution, submit to the auditor and to the state. And that will be done.
Thank you. And we have Resolution R-169 listed related to this. Proposed amendment to the Upper Delaware, Upper Raritan, Northeast Water Quality Management Plan.
I think Liz wanted that one.
Well, Ray, you
No,
wanted to...
I'll take it. I think Liz wanted that one. No. This is a request by Morris County. They are in the process of amending their water quality management plan and coming up with a new map for the area, which includes the majority of Morris County, excluding 3 or 4 municipalities, which falls under the Sussex County area. We're required by the administrative code to respond to their request for us to consent to this new map within 60 days of receipt of the letter. We received the letter on June 12th, and what's before you is a consent resolution agreeing to the service area map for Morris County as proposed by Morris County government.
Jeannie?
I read the document, but I couldn't understand exactly how this impacts us.
I don't believe there's a direct impact. I mean, Liz is
there
our
any?
expert on water, but not like teasing.
Yeah, we are not in any of those watersheds except for we are part of Morris County, so it is a Morris County plan. So I think that's the only, it's kind of a formality. You know, we are in the, send our water eventually to the Passaic for the most part. I guess even on the other side of the hill, it goes to the Great Swamp and then to the Passaic, so. We'll just tell the county they owe us one. All right, nothing else. That is listed as Resolution R-168, Ridgedale Avenue speed limit. Matt, if you can give us a...
Yes, as you know, there's been discussion regarding the speed limit, reducing it from 30 to 25. Several years ago, we did some studies on this. We reduced the speed limit from 35 to 30. The present studies do not support reducing it from 30 to 25. Because of that, and based on the residents' concerns as well as the Council President and Public Safety Committee, I believe it's prudent and required for us to notify the state DOT of this request, send them our studies, and seek their permission to reduce the speed limit from 30 to 25, since our studies, localized studies, don't support that. The other issue is that it does traverse another municipality. So my recommendation would be to direct the borough engineer to send all the studies and make a request to the state DOT to see if we can get their support to reduce the speed limit to 25 on Ridgedale Avenue in Madison.
So we will continue down that road if everyone is comfortable with it.
Yep. Do we need a motion?
I guess we can do,
Okay, well,
convert, yeah, thank you.
Okay, move to authorize the borough engineer and traffic safety officer to send in an application to the New Jersey Department of Transportation for reducing the speed limit on Ridgedale from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles per hour.
Have a second? Second. Okay, thank you. Discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yeah.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Thank you. Moving on to Complete Streets Advisory Committee. We are repackaging what was the Traffic Calming Committee. As we, last council meeting, we passed a resolution supporting that we are approving the guidelines for complete streets, so this kind of works well together and reinforces our goal to make streets safer for pedestrians, bicyclists, and all modes of transportation. So basically the goal of the committee would be similar, but the name would be changed. They would look at roads that are undergoing reconstruction and suggest measures to make it safer for pedestrians. Also review, it could be for Ridgedale Avenue, and we do have ongoing discussions about traffic patterns in and around the schools, as right now Tori J. Sabatini is the hot issue, is trying to address issues on Glenwild. So the recommendation would be to reinstate this committee, possibly even come back. I'd like to come back with really formalize this, because this committee has never been formalized. So it'd be 3 representatives from the mayor and council, which would include the liaisons or backups to public safety and public works and engineering, since those are the two areas that really deal with this directly, and the mayor or an at-large council member, along with borough engineer, the traffic safety officer, a board of education representative, and up to 2 residents. Discussion? Thoughts? All good?
Well,
Proceed?
yeah, I think we should go with this. The only suggestion is perhaps when we consider residents, perhaps one of the residents could be also a representative from the business district.
Sounds good.
Yep.
Have a motion to proceed with this?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
So we'll come back with a formalization of this at the next meeting, but we can work on getting the first committee together, or first meeting together. All right, appropriating $90,000 open space trust fund for greenhouse at Madison Community Gardens, and this is, the two go hand in hand, so we'll take discussion at the same time, which is establish the Community Gardens Advisory Committee. Rob?
Thank you, Mayor. The issue at hand is to advance $90,000 from the Open Space Trust Fund. There are adequate funds available in an effort to build an ADA-compliant greenhouse on the existing site of the community gardens. When we reformed the Passive Recreation Committee last year, we set up several subcommittees to work on different parts of what we thought were attainable short-term goals. And one of them, and actually the most successful, was the Community Gardens Project. And really, in just a little over a few months, we've taken a patch of overgrown clay and turned it into a truly exciting part of Madison, where the community gets together to share tips on how to grow various sorts of crops. We have a beautiful bird nest going out there and everything. And what we always wanted to do, though, is we wanted to make it more than just a place to grow vegetables and meat. We wanted to turn it into really an educational facility. And a big part of that we always talked about was to put a greenhouse there so that we could hold classes, get the schools involved, and even people from the Cheshire Home involved as well. The leaders of the group have done a tremendous amount of work, and I believe we've found a suitable structure, for $90,000 that we'd be able to put it up. Our initial seed money was to the tune of $47,000, which really, for the work that's been accomplished there, most of it has been done by volunteers. It really has gone a long way, and we want to move this into the second phase and really expand what it is we think the community gardens can be. A place for the community to come together, learn, and just really enhance the passive recreation available to Madison residents.
Very good. So we'll take the discussion in two parts. Rob covered the two things as well, but let's talk about the $90,000, the greenhouse first, and then we'll move on to the committee. Jeannie?
Yeah. Is a greenhouse structure a permissible use using the open space fund?
Yes.
Yeah, because it does say and improvements on the site for recreation.
And the structure is okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Now, a couple of things here. Regarding the funding, since we're using the Open Space Trust Fund, would it be possible for Robert, if he's still here, or he's not here, you can relay the message for Robert to provide a complete account activities for the Open Space Trust Fund from day one, so we have a better understanding of how we've been spending down the money and how much we have. Oh, you have that?
We actually have that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have. I mean, do you want me to read it out loud? It's
No.
Yeah, we've got it here. We anticipate having a balance of approximately $250,000 after paying down note interest and note principal on the purchase of the property. So, you know, we have a clean balance of approximately $250,000 as of January 1, and we would take the 90,000 from that.
January 1 of?
13.
Of 13?
Yes.
Okay.
And Jeannie, that figure does not include the 2013 proceeds, and after the reval, that'll be an additional
Right, because that's in
700,000.
January,
Right.
right.
So it
Understood.
reflects the expense, but doesn't reflect
The revenue.
Right. So we're really
So this is
understating
an
it.
absolute clean balance prior to any additional revenue.
Okay. And this question related to that, and you mentioned the plans for passive recreation. Now, in addition to the greenhouse, I'm sure there are other things that we would like to do as
On
part
the
of the
remaining 39
recommendation.
acres or
Right.
in the gardens themselves?
For passive recreation in general.
Right. We've spoken to Chris Cox about the remainder, but given some of the ongoing issues that we have to get through in terms of remediation on the site, we want to wait before we actually try to move forward with any other plans until we know exactly where we can, you know, where we can and can't tread. So that's all, that's on hold until we get a resolution of that and some of the other monies, so.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Okay. The reason for my question is we want to make sure that we still have the remaining balance, but we want to
Right.
keep an eye on the balance because there are other activities that we might potentially want to fund.
Right, I mean,
with
the
that money.
biggest ones were jogging and running paths, but some of them have to be altered depending upon, you know, our final resolution with some of the issues we have there. And things like bocce courts, but, you know, again, we have to wait and see exactly what is available to us.
And my last question is that the community garden it's great, it's beautiful, we were there. Now, is there any potential after the building of the greenhouse? Are there still potential for expanding the community garden?
Chris, if I'm not mistaken, we could add a few, the community garden, the greenhouse will go as you enter the site. It'll go to the right.
Exactly.
And then, but then there's a whole, another area to the, ooh, my cardinal points are no good, I guess to the northwest of where the end of the existing plots are, where you could add some more. So yes, there is.
Before the trees?
Yes. Well, there's no, further down past the trees, down the hills. There's, you know, we could probably add, what do you think, Chris, another 10 to 15?
Plots, you mean?
Yes,
10 to 15
plots in addition to the greenhouse, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Carmela?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, you know, regarding part of your question too. I like this, that the open space is to be replenished with grant funds when and if received. I had a conversation with Chris via email and with Jim Burnett, and we talked about Sustainable New Jersey. So there are grants out there, and it's my understanding that they've already applied for those. So that's a good indication. So if we're borrowing money from open space and they're going to replenish it with the grants, and I think that the great job that we've done with Sustainable New Jersey, that we should be able to receive some grant money and replenish that. So looking forward to that.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, so that's, now let's talk about the committee.
Yes, Mayor. As I mentioned previously, the idea for the community garden, while it has been around for a long time, was formalized through this passive recreation committee. But it's kind of a hybrid, right? Because you know, it's not traditional recreation in the sense of what everyone thinks, and at the same time, it's got an environmental bent. So as opposed to I believe it's so important to the town, and it's having such a positive impact, I don't think it would be fair to make it a subcommittee of any existing committees that the borough currently has set up. So what we want to do is make it a standalone committee, similar to all the other ones, and this way they will be given the latitude and the responsibility to really to grow this in a way that they see fit, while having the ability to take advice from townspeople, elected officials, other committees, but there will be no real constraints on them in terms of having to sort of fit a square peg into a round hole. And, it's very important because, not everyone likes sports, or not everyone plays sports. And it just gives an outlet for, productive activities besides. So I think, given its unique nature, we should set up a committee on its own.
Thank you. Well presented, and it certainly, the garden is a standalone program, and just as I've said before, as by nature of the word community, it's kind of working together in a single goal. So I think that does make sense to have it an ongoing committee to oversee that. Just a quick question: what the size of the committee right now? The unofficial committee is.
Well, it's kind of ad hoc. It's a little fluid, I guess. And again, that's something I think I'd like to work with the existing leadership on. We can set the amounts and come back, with the exact number of people that serve. We have recommendations in the ordinance, but it's almost like everyone that has a plot is a member of the committee. But there are definitely drivers to it. Chris, Stephen, just to name a few.
Other question?
Charles, Courtney as well. Yep. I want to leave him out because we may have to listen to the rest of that Madison speech.
Yeah, he's going to come back and do the other pages. Jeannie.
Yeah, I just want to add that to having this set up as a separate committee certainly is a good idea. It worked out real well for Chatham Borough, so it should really work out for us as well. I had the same concern as the mayor, 15-member committee. It's a large committee to get things done, but whatever you feel that's
But if you actually you've been there, Jeannie, and if you look at what has actually been accomplished in 2 or 3 months, it's amazing. Yeah, I mean, remember when we first went out there, it was just kind of, it was nothing, then it was plowed, then there was sticks and strings, and now you've got established paths. Water problems get fixed right away. People are sharing, all of, people share tools. There's a great sense of community there, and I think that we'd be able to work together. I truly do.
Okay, sounds good.
Rob, I went out there last night for the first time when no one was there. And you are correct. It's really nice. The only thing I would like is they had you walk in, they must have had gravel there at one time, but it's been washed away. I would like to see if we can get some gravel there. But the inside is quite nicely done.
The DPW staff has been great.
I know.
We had an abundance of wood chips and things like that, and we're working with DPW on getting some more material for the entranceway, because right now it is a little rocky and everything, but it'll get done in due time. I'm confident.
Any other questions or comments? I do have one for Matt. Just if the size is 15 and we have the quorum, majority of voting members my one concern is if a committee's too big, the quorum is too high. If we introduce this now with a 15 and you come back in 2 weeks for final reading, you feel that 12 is a better number, is that a...
What you would do is you would just let that ordinance die and reintroduce a new ordinance. Okay, so that's not a problem.
But wouldn't be a minor change if...
No, that's not a minor change.
That's not a minor, okay.
If you go from 15 to 12, that's a major change.
But, so you're comfortable with 15 as...
Any input from may I poll the leadership? or may I adjourn?
I think you used that lifeline in the first
exactly,
round.
I'd like to use a lifeline. May I request an adjournment for 2 minutes to confer with my...
What I would do is I'd make the suggestion that you go with what you've put in there, the 15, and if it turns out that you're having a quorum problem, because you're going to need to have at least 8 members show up to have a quorum. If you're having a quorum problem, very quickly we can then amend the ordinance to drop it down to a lower number. So I think it's probably better to go forward and amend it later on if there's a problem.
All right.
Makes sense to me.
So we'll proceed. Okay. And you saved yourself a lifeline.
Yeah. Yes, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. appropriate $50,000 from General Capital Improvement Fund for emergency stormwater rehabilitation. Bob in the audience? Bob Vogel? There he is, back row. Always buying the cheap seats. Come on up.
Further road down.
Yeah, that's not
He's guarding the road down.
Yeah, that's not so cheap.
Yeah, there's a good showing tonight, Mayor. I had to go all the way to the rear.
Yep.
But that's okay. Let's see, what can I say about this item?
The stormwater culvert, and so it had to be done an emergency.
About a month ago.
Yep.
About a month ago, we got a phone call from New Jersey Transit, and we met with them out in the field about a large sinkhole that occurred adjoining the railroad property. Now that sinkhole is also adjoining a piece of property that is owned by the Morris County Park Commission, which used to be the old Morris Traction Company rail line, which adjoined the current rail line and ran through the Twombly property down to downtown Morristown. So it's got some history attached to it. In any case, there's also a 26 Crestwood, which was affected directly by the problem that we had with the corrugated metal pipe stormwater culvert that's there. It's 4 foot in diameter. It's a good-sized pipe. And there was a collapse next to the railroad, and so it was a serious problem that had to get remediated right away. So David and I went out immediately and got 3 quotes from competing vendors. One of them was a pipe lining vendor, which we were more or less hopeful that would get the work for the lowest cost because there was less damage to private property. The owner of 28 Crestwood is currently under contract, and he wants to close on his house. And he certainly doesn't want large excavating equipment running across his property in order to get to the culvert, which is somewhat remote towards the rear of his property and right across the Morris Traction property. And so we're dealing with New Jersey Transit, dealing with the County of Morris, and dealing with that private property owner in order to get a project pulled together that works for everybody. And luckily we've gotten to that stage. Nothing is inexpensive. The lining project from the lining company will be on the order of $35,000 to $40,000. I know David's already incurred $5,000 worth of costs for video taping of the source of the problem, and I know we'll have some ancillary costs on follow-up videotaping and testing of the pipeline when it's entirely finished. But the optimistic part of it all is that will be done in 2 weeks' time, and the property owner who's most affected won't have any damage at all to his property. And so we're very happy to be able to move that forward, Mayor. And that's essentially the components that'll make up the $50,000 expenditure.
And we had done investigation as far as responsibility of the culvert, as our share versus New Jersey Transit versus the county. Is there any chance that we get any reimbursement or?
Well, I suggest that we put all our direct costs together and submit them to New Jersey Transit, as they are at least a small portion of the problem that exists there, being that where their culvert leaves off and where our culvert picks up is somewhat of a no man's land, and there's an area there that I think, you know, if better maintained by both parties, would have resulted in a better situation for us when you talk. I mean, no one likes surprises like the surprise that we had, and so we may have a chance with New Jersey Transit on this. Yeah, so I would I'll pull all the costs together and send them down to Transit for their review, and hopefully they'll work with us on cost.
Are there questions or comments? Jeannie?
Bob, is there anything we can do to inspect frequently or periodically to avoid emergencies like this in the future?
Yes, absolutely. I think having a program for the more remote locations in our system that aren't inspected frequently enough, and I think we could identify those fairly quickly and readily, and get some videotaping, some extra videotaping done of the insides of those culverts, and then trying to set up a program for rehabilitating those, lining those, certainly would put off any root surprises that we would have as part of a collapse of a culvert. And so, yeah, no, I think that's a worthwhile endeavor. Some of those issues came up during the hurricane last year. In fact, we saw some of our culverts and stormwater facilities tested again, and we put a good long list of projects together as a result of the hurricane. And again, funding becomes an issue, but inspection and awareness ahead of time is also a very big issue. So I would love to put a program together with David to inspect those culverts that we think are still a problem.
They're on the plan?
Yep.
Okay.
David's here.
Yeah.
Any other questions or?
Thank you.
Yeah. Questions or comments? All right, this is ordinance 15 tonight. Moving on to ordinances for hearings.
Okay, ordinances scheduled for hearing were introduced by title and passed on first reading at a regular meeting of the council held on Wednesday, May the 30th. All were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call up ordinance for second reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinances by title.
Ordinance 8, 2012, ordinance of the Borough of Madison, amending Ordinance 5, 2008, setting salary ranges for non-union full-time employees to include the salary range and title for purchasing officer.
I open the hearing. Anyone wishing to comment on ordinance 8, 2012, please step. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 8-2012.
Second that ordinance.
Discussion? Vote?
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
I declare the aforementioned ordinance adopted and finally passed, and ask the Borough Clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance to the law.
Ordinance 9, 2012, an ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Ordinance 4, 2011 to increase the maximum salary for the magistrate of the municipal court and increase the maximum hourly rate for deputy court administrator.
I open the hearing. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 9-2012.
I second that ordinance.
Discussion? Vote?
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
I declare the aforementioned adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law.
Ordinance 10, 2012, ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Section 155-18A of the Borough Code entitled Sewer Use Charge.
I open the hearing. Does anyone wish to comment on ordinance 10-2012? Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 10-2012.
I second.
Discussion? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
I declare the aforementioned adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice thereof in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law.
Ordinance 11, just for clarification, has a hearing date scheduled for the meeting of July the 9th.
Okay. This is, now we're on to round 2 for the invitation for the public for discussion. This one has no limitations on topic as long as it's appropriate. Once again, state your name, your address, and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Anyone wishing to speak, please step up to the lectern.
Hi, Don Brunner, 20 Redmond Drive. I know some of the residents on Ridgedale Avenue want that speed limit reduced to 25. I just find it difficult I try to drive 30, and I certainly can go down to 25. I just think Central Avenue is 35, Greenwood Avenue is 25, and I just think it'll be a little bit of a hardship for some people to go down to 25. We're already going 35 anyway. But since some of the residents on Ridgedale wanted a 25, it is still possible to have it reduced. That,
Yeah, and certainly as we send everything to DOT, they'll consider the counts, the average speed and the road. One of the challenges we have with Ridgedale is the fact that it is a very different road when you get beyond Central. Besides the fact that it is a county road, it's not, doesn't have the same feel of the historic district. It's now wider and certainly can accommodate the higher speed limit better than the section from Central to Park Avenue. So all that has to be kind of thrown in the hopper. And, you know, there are, Greenwood is a great example of, I was in conversation with a few residents the other day about, you know, the challenge of going 25 on Greenwood. It's certainly appropriate to go 25 on Greenwood, and it's just, the onus is on the driver to respect residents and pedestrians and overall safety.
okay, I can live with 25 on Ridgedale. I just know that a lot of people do still go 35, and it's...
And they'll stop doing that when they...
When they get the ticket.
Sam Cerciolo, Park Avenue, Madison. As I left the council last January, Mayor, you introduced me as Sam Cerciolo, liaison of the people of Madison, which I take very seriously for the residents. Therefore, I'm requesting the answers on the following 3 questions. And please allow me my 3 minutes before anybody answers my 3 questions.
Sounds good.
First question. When can we, the people, hear the outcome on the investigation of the police department regarding the controversy between the police chief and the one officer that resulted in a suit against the department? Was it resolved? If so, what's the exact cost to the taxpayers? Is there an investigation? The community fears? Did we initiate the, you know, that's the question, that's number 1.
Okay, second question.
Is the Madison Health Department continues to undergo changes in management that do not seem to resolve the questions of whether taxpayers are underwriting services to the communities it serves. After all, the cost is us about $400,000 a year for health services. However, if we were to contract out with another health service community, wouldn't we be saving money? This was brought up many years ago, and the department continues without accountability of the top officers. Will we have another study made of its vulnerability? That's my second question.
All right.
The third question. This is a request from you, Mayor. I would like you to intervene. I have been unsuccessful in getting a solid commitment with the construction committee to attend a meeting. Although I followed your suggestions, we have been unable to set a date. I do think with my construction expertise, I can be very helpful, and I have a lot of information that I'd like to share with you where we can save money and get things done better. They're my 3 questions.
All right. Number 1, I will hand off to Acting Borough Attorney.
The first question dealing with the investigation, because the employee or the employees involved were not riced, we're not going to discuss employees. When you are on the council, you know that what occurs in the executive session and the employee's rights to be riced before they're discussed is sacrosanct. So we're not going to be discussing any individual employees. As I said at the last meeting, your question regarding the chief of police, the chief of police under the Chief of Police Powers Act and under the Attorney General guidelines that were amended in May of 2011 mandates that if there is any type of investigation regarding the chief of police, it goes to the county prosecutor's office. The county prosecutor's office, whatever they decide to do, if there is an investigation, that's their prerogative. The governing body does not get involved in that. They cannot get involved in it, nor will they get involved in it. At this time, we're not conducting an investigation. We're not authorized to conduct an investigation. And your question about expenditure of funds, there are no funds being expended regarding any type of investigation that my office or any other office that I'm aware of is conducting on behalf of the Borough of Madison regarding the police department.
Okay, thank you. Health Department, some of this could be, I don't know whether it's still on Rosenet or not. But during the budget process, James Nargalis, the then health officer, did a very good job of presenting an explanation of the costs in Madison versus other communities, and it was enlightening to understand that we were not comparing apples to apples with the other communities. So if that's not still on the web, we can make that available. That'll be helpful. We've also been working closely with the Board of Health as far as moving towards a self-sustaining operation. So that is our long-range plan. We'll continue along those lines so that we can provide the great services that a local health department can provide, but not with overburdening our taxpayers. So that is on the list. And the construction committee, we do have a separate construction committee. I will leave it up to that committee to decide whether they want to invite you to a meeting to present the issues that you have shared. And obviously, in your time with the council, you have shared a lot of these. And you know, you and I have met at your office on the corner of Cross Street and Main Street and covered some of these things. So I would, you know, if maybe want to write an outline and then send it to Rob Catanello. I know you met with him directly, and he can decide whether it's appropriate for that full committee.
No,
Okay.
I called 3 times, no answer. So, but, all right, but can I answer some, can I go?
So I stopped the clock, and now you got 40 seconds, so I'll restart it.
Lucky number 40, all right.
Yep.
As far as the health department, does it cost us around $400,000, and there's, what, 6 towns that pay about $40,000 or $50,000 for our service? Is that true? And then...
Again, as I mentioned, a very good guide is to look at this PowerPoint presentation, and you'll see what they're all in cost. What they pay for us to Madison does not cover all the services that we have, that we pay for. So the money comes to us, we provide a certain level, but they're also putting more money on top of that to provide other services. So that's a big difference. So I would take a look at that PowerPoint presentation, or you and I, you know, we can get together at some point. I'll step you through it. Be more than happy to do that.
My time is up, right?
All right, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Anyone else wishing to be heard? Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting and move on to introduction of ordinances.
Ordinance is scheduled for first reading, have a hearing date set for July 9th, 2012. All will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, and made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I move ordinance.
Let me do my, I get paid by the word, so I call up the following ordinances for first reading and ask the Borough Clerk to read said ordinances by title.
Ordinance 12, 2012, ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 195-12A of the Borough Code entitled Land Use regarding temporary sign permits to establish fees.
I move ordinance 12-2012.
I second.
Discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ordinance 13, 2012, ordinance of the Borough of Madison amending Chapter 94, Appendix A of the Borough Code entitled Electric Utility regarding net metering.
Mayor, I move ordinance 13-2012.
I second.
Discussion? Jeannie?
Yep, question. Are there state guidelines that we need to adhere to? Does this ordinance
For the
meet those guidelines?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The Board of Public Utility has established guidelines for net metering that other public utilities have to adhere to. We don't have to adhere to them. However, this templates them very closely. So this is only for residential service, so it is not for larger commercials, and it is continues to be limited to 100 kilowatts, as we discussed at the last presentation. The goal is to have this to encourage residential solar, and as Dr. Esposito had been presented, in 2 years when the electric new meters are in, there'll be an entire rate study that would involve rate decoupling and a new rate structure from that point.
2 more questions, Jim, while you're up there. Under item C, you mentioned a permit. Is there a cost involved in obtaining the permit?
Yes. Yes, the permit fees are earlier in the appendix and referenced in other parts of the chapter. They're not going to change. The permit fee is not inexpensive. To have someone submit an application to have solar installed, there is the construction permit fee, but then there's also a fee which attempts to reimburse the borough to have an outside consultant look at the solar array, the disconnect, and the engineering of the system to make sure that it is going to backfeed into our electric grid safely and appropriately and not damage any of our equipment. So it's important for us to have that. The last 3 applications that have come in, we've actually paid a little more than the applicant has paid. The applicant pays a fixed fee. We've actually paid the consultant a little bit more just because of the amount of time. It's based on an hourly rate. But it's very important for us to have a comprehensive review of the plans to make sure it's backfeeding into the system properly.
Like if we consistently are paying more, we'll come back with a revised
It's
fee.
like $40 or $50. It's
Okay,
not
so
killer.
it's so we're close, okay.
Okay, so it's somewhere else that's not here, right?
That was part of the original ordinance from 5 years ago.
Okay, and my last question is under D. The second line there that it talked about that the credit will the customer will receive the same rate as what Madison pays for purchase power. What exactly is the definition of that?
Sure. So it's best to look at it that section C and D are actually the existing ordinance that we have for every rate structure, where the resident that installs solar pays us at a wholesale rate and receives a credit at, pays us at the retail rate and receives a credit at the wholesale rate. Currently, I believe 9.2 cents. So section C and D are kind of the existing code that's there, which is still going to be in place for every other rate structure except for RS. So when you look at the first page of the ordinance where it talks about applicable to service classification RS residential service, this is the kind of the new section of the ordinance. And if you'll see the difference on section 2 there, as opposed to section 2 here, is that, or section 1 is that the credited rate is going to be the rate that the resident is paying as opposed to the rate that the borough is paying wholesale.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation.
Any other questions or comments? Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 14/2012, ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $90,000 from the purchase of an ADA compliant greenhouse at the Madison Community Gardens.
Mayor, I move ordinance 14-2012.
I second the motion.
Discussion? We pretty much covered that. All right, roll call vote.
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ordinance 15/2012, ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $50,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for the emergency purchase of materials, equipment, and services for storm sewer rehabilitation.
I move on 15-2012.
I second.
Discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes?
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Abstain.
Ordinance 16/2012, ordinance of the Borough of Madison establishing the Madison Community Garden Advisory Committee.
Mayor, I move ordinance 16-2012.
I second the motion.
Discussion? Again, that was covered. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yes.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Okay, consent agenda resolutions.
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mayor, I move consent agenda resolutions R166-2012 through R76-2012.
Or
176. 173 is all.
We are polling, which one?
173,
Wait, oh, yes, that's right.
That's the only one, yes.
So let me do that again. R66-2012 through R172-2012, R74-2012 through 176-2012.
I second that.
discussion? Vote?
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yeah.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
No one's finished business. Approval of vouchers?
Public safety, $13,866.23. Health and public assistance, $6,898.59. Public Works and Engineering, $140,834.34. Community Affairs, $1,814.31. Finance and Borough Clerk, $354,057.58. And Utilities, $1,445,119.92. The total is $1,962,590.97.
Mayor, I move the vouchers for approval.
Second.
Discussion? Vote?
Mrs. Sukamoto?
Yes.
Dr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Lynx?
Yeah.
Mr. Catalanello?
Yes.
Mr. Landrigan?
Yes.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
There's no new business?
Mayor, I have a comment.
Yes?
I just want to acknowledge Dr. Vivian Bowe, the new president of Drew University, being in the audience and join us for this meeting this evening. I want to congratulate her for her new position and look forward to plenty of partnering opportunities with Drew University.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you, Jean.
Carmella?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you.
I got to go home.
Happy 4th of July, all.
Yes.
I come to get here in Madison. How about that?